Hey y'all, Kelly here. Welcome to the Ground Shots podcast, a podcast that explores our relationship to ecology through conversations and storytelling. I'm doing a quick and dirty solo episode right now. I have nothing officially planned for this, but I have some ideas about what I want to share with you. It won't be a super long episode, and actually today I got to hit the road to go to Leadville, Colorado to do a 80-hour wilderness first responder course. So all week I've been thinking I need to do a little podcast episode. And, over the years I've been doing these larger podcasts with guests, often less solo episodes. And sometimes I just want to pop out a quicker episode and just talk to you, just me. And taking the time to do that is something I'm trying to prioritize right now. And so, doing those longer episodes, I just can't make as much time for those right now in my life. But these shorter ones actually might make it so that I can be sharing more episodes. So we'll see how it goes, because it's going to be a busy summer for me, and that's partly what I'm going to be talking about. And I think the podcast audience might be interested in some of what I'm doing. I have these different worlds that I swim in, and I'm working on how to marry them more here on the podcast. And the wilderness first responder that I'm about to do, half of it was online and half of it will be more than half of it will be in person. And it's the big 80-hour one I have to do before I do my field ecology classes this summer, which are in the backcountry on the Grand Mesa. This public lands area that's part of the land formation is like a giant flat top mesa, and part of it is kind of a little bit different than that. But I'm doing these ecology immersions, which I've mentioned in the last few months, but we didn't get it together for me to do this wilderness first responder training. Sometimes they call it woofer. Until like literally the week before I'm supposed to go out and teach my first one. So just more of a logistics thing with the organization that I'm teaching through. So this week I will be learning a whole lot about CPR and shock and wounds and how to do vitals, and I hope I can remember everything that I had to study online ahead of time. But I wanted to, I just wanted to come in on here for a second before I hit the road. I'm currently in my trailer on my friend's land where he grows organic medicinal herbs, so it's super cool right now to see a lot of herbs that I've grown in the past when I used to do a lot more farming, and then obviously some things that I have never seen before being grown. So it's been soothing and kind of cool to see that and kind of get to look at these plants regularly. And this spring has been exceptionally rainy after like a wet winter too. So I don't know what normal is here, because I haven't spent a spring in this particular part of Colorado before, but there's a lot of greens and brassicas and just like tons of just like fast growing, beautiful, lush plant life right now. I didn't quite realize it was going to be this beautiful here in the spring, and so I've been eating a lot of wild greens, and that's been really good. Just preparing the last few weeks for my summer of teaching, and also adjusting back from being in the Sonoran Desert and then the Gila Wilderness. It was actually kind of a hard adjustment. The last solo I did, I was visiting with a friend in Bisbee, Arizona, and just one of the places I stopped and hung out with friends. Being nomadic for so long, I have gotten used to being in new environments while also craving stability and regularity in one place. But that whole way that I've existed has meant that like so many people I really care about that I bonded more closely with are spread out across vast geographic bounds. So it's been a little jarring for me still even trying to stay a little bit closer into a certain range to like not feel caught between also wanting to go to Appalachia and visit my friends there and going to the West Coast and visiting. It's like just what I've set up for myself, and perhaps I'm just supposed to be doing this kind of what did a friend say, pollinating, I guess, work. But right now I'm in the center in Colorado for the summer. We'll see what the future brings after this season, but and definitely feeling that like, oh, I have people in other places that I miss and plants in other places that I miss, but it's always potentially going to be like that, especially if you've been someone that has spent time in so many bioregions and places and communities. So I'm trying to just take the medicine of what it means to stay here for a little bit, because I've kind of needed that for a while, especially after such an intense past 2 years in so many ways for me. And then having this fall, like a bunch of stressful stuff happened with my truck and like being stranded for a while. And I wasn't really sharing too much about that on the podcast, and just like so much of my personal life I haven't been sharing, and I don't know if it's really appropriate. It's just hard to know sometimes, right? Like in the world of the work I do, which I feel like my life is my work, working with plants and doing research that weaves like experience and looking at what other people are saying and talking about and thinking about when it comes to land relationship. And I'm engaging more of the teaching piece, and I'm really just excited to be doing in-person teaching more right now, because I need that human connection, just like all of us, right, around this work and these ideas that especially uproot certain things that we're told in this culture are normal about how we relate to land. So it's good to be doing that with people, and you have community around it, and I think we all need that so much too, especially after the pandemic. And I'm not immune to the deep loneliness that so many people feel in the world post-pandemic, and also the world of knowing the truth of so much of the ecological destruction that our culture is exponentially creating right now. And it's just crazy. It's happening so fast right in front of us, you know? So I feel more urgency than ever to continue what I'm doing, even though it's been very difficult at times, to know the best way to do it, because I don't want to do it alone. And that's what I'm doing right now. And in a lot of ways, maybe not every aspect of what I'm doing, but, and holding it is also lonely. And also financially, I haven't been able to really make my work support me. It's honestly like drained me in a lot of ways. Like even this podcast it ultimately kind of cost me money, and I've been resistant to doing ads and stuff over the years because it felt inauthentic to me, and I thought somehow I would be able to make Patreon work or something like that, but it's never really supported me. It might sometimes pay the bills for the overhead of the podcast for periods, but it's never really supported me. So I'm trying to re-envision what that could look like in all the things that I care about doing. And so that's a big step for me, for like, it's self-care and for me to be able to continue the research I do and the teaching and the podcast and all the things I do, the walks and the photos and the documentation of landscapes and plants. Like I need to also like make it financially supportive for me. So that's been something I've been working on, and also trying new things, like teaching 7 days at a time. Doing ecology immersions is something I've never done, and I'm actually really grateful that like I got asked to do this, and somebody else, and so I am collaborating a little bit, you know, I can't say I'm not, but someone else, Jeff of Groundworks, a nonprofit here in Paonia, is like doing some of the logistical back end stuff that I wouldn't have known how to do, like permits, insurance, and doing a little bit of mentoring with me on teaching and holding space, at least from the lens that he knows how to do it from working for Knowles. So I'm getting some experience of what it means to hold space for people in a place or in multiple landscapes where we see each other every day for a period, and build on each day together and form bonds together. And so that's a new thing for me, and I'm really just excited for the summer to like unfold around these ecology programs that we're teaching, or I'm teaching out on the Grand Mesa. I just did one last weekend, 4 days. It was a little bit more of a hybrid town and wild space. Although wild space, what is wild? So much of what I talk about in my work too. But like a hybrid class that based out of Groundworks campus, which is right on the Gunnison, or the North Fork of the Gunnison River. So and the class was focused on a riparian ecology, and we were able to basically camp along the river, the people who wanted to camp there, and some people commuted and do a lot of stuff right there at the campus. And there's a conservation easement right there too, so we had land to walk right from where we camped and study this particular little micro niche. And then we jumped off from there and took some field trips to Dominguez Canyon, which is a really cool area, protected area around here that has a lot of archaeological stuff. It's totally different in its bioregional like particularities. It's more like what I've experienced in Moab and Utah. So we got to see, even just an hour away, what a whole different riparian zone looks like. We talked a lot of stuff about invasive plants in the Southwest. And we did some other field trips to some watery areas kind of uphill, because here elevation's everything. I mean, my idea for this was to start down low, because the riparian ecologies are like some of the first to like start springing, and then move up in elevation. So my next ones are going to be at 7,000 and 8,000 feet. And but we did go up a little bit to check out who's coming up in the Gamble Oaks right now, and there were definitely plants coming up. So to be able to bring students just uphill, and then we also went to visit a really cool person around here who's doing some restoration work on some piece of land she owns. Elizabeth is her name, where she's restoring a piece of land that's adobes. So if you're not from, or like if you haven't spent time in Four Corners or in Western Colorado, Utah, like there's like a geological formation called Badlands or adobes that is partly based off of the old inland ocean, the way that they were created, that was here long ago. And they look a lot like barrens now. The ones here, what we think of as barrens anyways from a Western perspective, but like from like our Eurocentric brain and how we impose that on land still, even now, hundreds of years after being here. But like a lot of these rolling hills, as you would say, without a lot of trees, usually used to be vast grasslands with a certain kind of like set of grasses that held water higher into the soil and like held those adobes together in a certain way. And now they're not. They were overgrazed, and a lot of them are without like the shrubs that used to be there, or there's not those grasses anymore, and so they are having a hard time like regenerating from our over disturbance. And so this person, Elizabeth, is doing experiments on her piece of land that she bought in this valley. It's like just a little pocket of adobes, and restoring that section. And of course she had some intact sagebrush and saltbush and greasewood there, which are some plants that you'll find on the adobes and in soils that have salt mixed in, and like certain soils that are harder to grow for other plants, like those plants will thrive. So she's got some of those already, versus some of the adobes don't, because they haven't been allowed to establish. And so we got to visit with her and see what she's doing with water there, with beaver analog dams, and like thinking about water in her food forest and restoration work, experimental restoration work, and got to look at stuff about beavers. And we just had a really cool 4-day packed weekend. Jeff, actually the person that runs Groundwork, studied the Colorado River as his college research work, and so he did a big presentation for us, which I learned a lot about. So we kind of connected. I mostly taught, but we had a couple guest people. We connected what's happening in the ecology on the land in action, like how are the cottonwoods and willows responding to us not letting the rivers expand and breathe in the way that they used to, and create these like broader river channels where flooding can happen more regularly, and the want for control over the land, and in so many aspects of this culture has meant that a lot of rivers are kind of pushed to be in the same channel every year, and then that creates scenarios where like plants suffer and water table suffers, and a lot of things happen because of that. Like a lot of negative things end up happening because of not allowing rivers to express themselves, and overuse of water, and the dams that we put in have really messed up a lot of aspects of the watershed. So it's a very big web, and every river watershed has a story in this way, has like a multifaceted, like complex story. So we looked at that bigger patterning and bigger picture, and then we looked at the plants themselves, and then plant patterns that you can take those skills anywhere and be able to recognize what plants are there based on their plant family patterns, and then looking a lot of the deeper topics that I get into in my study groups online and in my writings around like themes of wildness, themes of like what it means to be a human in participation with land, and the myth of wilderness, and deconstructing in some ways the like where did we get native and invasive plant from? Where do we get that from originally, and how should we keep that in mind, like the history of that when we're looking on the landscape? And then like what's the future hold, and then how can we be heart-centered? And all of this is something I'm really learning now is important to me, and especially after so much grief in my personal life the past couple years, that I can be pretty intellectual and pretty geeky about teaching about plants and about ecology and about the philosophy of all of it, but I also really want to wrap it all back around into like the heart of just human connection and community, and feeling like we belong. And what does that really mean for a place to be a place, and for us to feel like we belong there or with each other? And what ways are the ways that we're treating the land in it not being a great thing? How is that mirrored in the ecology of our social world as people with each other? And I'm really like seeing those things play out even in such well-meaning worlds and like realities, like both like interpersonally in my like one-on-one close relationships, but also even in the subculture of like conservation or like herbalism or foraging, like this world of like we care about plants, but like it looks really different depending on who you ask. And there's definitely things about our culture that are toxic or are just blindly fed to us that we kind of just like accept, that I see people still kind of reenacting and not realizing, and it's not like I know all the answers. I mean, I'm probably doing a lot of that too. So it's just things I'd like to bring up, and I hope in it all that it creates more authentic connection with landscape, or curiosity, really, I just wanted to share a little bit about that because it was really moving and good for me to like have the medicine of teaching that and connecting and bonding with the group that we had. And I'm about to do this wilderness first responder and then move into, I'll have like 3 days. My friend Bridget gets here, who's going to be cooking for me. She and I have done some walks together, and we met originally in North Carolina. She's going to be cooking for me. And then we have 3 days, and then we're out for 7 days. And then there's like a kind of 5-6 day break. And then we have another 7-day session, and we'll be base camping at a certain spot with our cars. We're not going to be backpacking out where we like sleep at different locations out there every night. So that'll make it easier for people who come, who want to be able to access certain things from their car. And we'll have a more of a fancier outdoor kitchen setup so that we can have like pretty good food cooking stuff going on. And this format is just an experiment for me. Of course, I'd love to be backpacking and walking with people and being in having the simplest gear and just like really getting out there. But I think to have it accessible to people who can take the time off work and who also don't necessarily want to try to configure all of that other stuff, this will be a really cool way to do that, for it to be accessible to some people. And we'll still get on walks every day or every other day to like get out on the landscape, more day hike style. But it's exciting, and I'm really just, it's with such immense amount of rain that's happened this season. I'm just excited to like see what's happening with the plants. I'm actually going to pop by this group campsite today, I think, on my way to where I'm doing my woofer. I think I'll have time and check it out, what it looks like. So right now, I hope it's not full of snow. I think that it's not, but you know, I thought that a couple weeks ago, even with a riparian class, I was like, is this going to happen? And then all of a sudden, boom, you know, because it's been a little bit of a late spring. But with all that said, we still have space in all the ecology programs this summer. Mine have been filling, but they're not full yet. So if you're interested and you want to sign up last minute to come out, you can go on the website that the classes are being hosted through, the nonprofit layinggroundwork.org, and they have a section on the website for the human ecologies and Colorado ecologies immersions, and you can sign up for any of the ones I'm about to do last minute if you would like. We have some scholarship flexibility now. If you have scholarship need, financial need, reach out to Jeff at Laying Groundwork. His email is on the website, and he can work out something with you. And because we have space for that right now. And then the classes I'm doing in August, or the class I'm doing in August, still has space. It's 4 days, and Nikki Hill, who's been on the podcast a bunch of times, is teaching 2-week-long ecology courses right when monsoon season is starting and the mushrooms season is starting. And I'm hoping to go to at least one of those, and I'm really excited about it because Nikki also doesn't offer this kind of thing very often. So if you have listened to her on the podcast and you're really curious about working with her and what all the years of knowledge she has accumulated from doing land tending work across the West, this is a great opportunity to get time with her. A couple people are doing my 4-day and then doing her 7-day, or a 7-day and then my 4-day, because they're kind of all sandwiched together. And we'll be in the high country for that one, so probably closer to 10,000 feet. Super beautiful that time of year. It's like the place to be, because it can be hotter down in the valley. It's like the place to be. So I'm excited for a summer of this, and I'm probably going to be teaching from my friends' kids' summer camp a little bit, and hoping to get on the trail, the CDT or CT, for a short time. And if I do, I will broadcast out to y'all what it's like out there. I'm, the Colorado Trail Project, which was going a few years ago with Gabe Crawford, is kind of just like in pause right now, but being able to get out there and like check on some spots maybe, or like just get back up into the landscapes that we were studying would be really cool. And one layer and weaving and tendril of the whole thing. Well, before I go, I wanted to just ask you guys if you wouldn't mind giving this podcast a review on iTunes. Written review would be super cool. And give us some stars, hopefully 5 stars, and give us a written review, because I really enjoy reading them. And we're getting closer and closer to 100 reviews, but and are all 5-star at this point, so I'm just so grateful for that. So take a chance and get on there and give us a review. It's great feedback for me to see and hear what you guys are thinking about the podcast. And I know I haven't been putting out as much as I was a couple years ago. But maybe that'll change sooner or later once I figure out how to financially sustain this project more. And also, I've been more active on Substack this year than Patreon, but I do still have both. These are ways that you can support the project. I've just been really enjoying the format of Substack for publishing some of my writings and stuff too. So groundshots.substack.com. You can join, read, listen to Ground Shots episodes that aren't public, and support us financially if you want. And then Patreon's still going. I'm not putting as much out on Patreon, but there's a huge backlog of work on there that you can access, and any of this just helps me be able to do this and be able to do the work that I do, and all of it helps so much, really, truly. It's a labor of love for me, and it always has been. And I also in a place where I'm like, I really want to be supported by my work, and so you feel like you have the spaciousness to support. Yes, it's all so helpful. So I'm gonna pop off now. A lot more I could share, but this is me trying to fit in a quick and dirty podcast episode without putting as much of the big layers in that I usually do, where I take hours of I spend hours making show notes and figuring out music, and I mean, I love all that stuff, and that's not going to go away, but it's just like, I don't need to do that for everyone, because then I don't get them out to y'all. Oh, another thing we did in the riparian class that I'm obsessed with right now, I just wanted to share real quick before I pop off, is dog bane processing. I'm doing crafts for all my classes too, to try to ground people into doing something with their hands, engaging the land and making something beautiful. And we did a lot of cordage, and I'm working on trying to get a bunch of rope and cordage made to make bags and baskets out of them. And dog bane is such a fascinating plant that is sometimes a riparian plant here that I'm obsessed with. I was dreaming about making cordage last night and popping the stalks to get the fiber out. So if you come in one of my classes, we'll be doing dog bane together at some point. And also there's a skills gathering happening here in Paonia in September, run by Brianna of Rooted Apothecary and Kat McKinnon. I forget the name of her apothecary, but they're both herbalists doing sort of a hybrid herbalism and land skills gathering with music too. It's called Forest and Field, and that's happening here in Paonia in September. I know the tickets are kind of going quickly because the place where it happens, Big B's Cidery, is definitely a popular spot. So I'll be teaching dog bane cordage there too this September. So if you feel like you're in the region and you want to pop into that, it'll be a cool extended weekend, kind of gathering with music. So where people are going to be sharing skills. Well, I'm going to leave it at that, and so I can get on the road and check out my spot where I'm going to be teaching from and prepare myself for 10-hour days of first aid, wilderness first aid immersion. Right now I'm hoping it won't be too overwhelming, but it probably will be, and it just is what it is because I have to do it. And I'll probably be grateful for having the skills after it's all said and done. But all right, y'all, take care, and you can find relevant links to things I mentioned in the show notes. It's going to be a quick, kind of abbreviated show notes, but until next time, thanks for listening.